Everyone, good evening, Mr. President. Well, welcome again back to the Council of Americas and your delegation, your foreign minister, the two ambassadors, your wife, your son, whom I met again here this evening. I'd also like to mention the presence of Undersecretary Otero from the State Department. Thank you for joining us this evening. It's a great pleasure for me, Mr. President, to present the Gold Insigne to you as President of Colombia. The Gold Insigne is the highest honor of the Americas Society and is presented to democratically elected heads of state from the Western Hemisphere who have made outstanding contributions to their country, to their region, and indeed to the world as a whole. This is an especially exciting evening for the Americas Society, as it is rare that we have the opportunity to honor someone who has for so long been associated with our organizations. President Santos has been a member of our Chairman's International Advisory Council since 1995 and is currently on leave while in office, although someday we look forward to welcoming you back. But his spirit is always with us. President Juan Manuel Santos, you embody this award. Over the course of an extraordinary career in both the private and public sectors, you have always been a visionary leader with an unwavering commitment to your country and to the region. Your outstanding accomplishments as Minister of Foreign Trade, Minister of Finance, Minister of Defense, and now as President have helped define Colombia as it is today and propelled the country's emergence onto the world stage. Colombia has become a leading destination for investment in the Americas, upgraded in 2011 by Moody's, Fitch, and Standard & Poor's, the famous rating agencies, to investment-grade status and attracting a record $11.8 billion in foreign direct investment in the first 8 months of this year. Building on the policies of your predecessors, you have helped navigate the country through global economic volatility towards growth and stability. In just the first half of your presidency, over 1.2 million Colombians have been lifted out of poverty, and more than 2 million new jobs have been created. This is an enviable record. And of course, there was the long-awaited free trade agreement with my country that finally entered into force this past May. Its adoption this year was in large measure a direct result of your perseverance and active diplomatic engagement with your United States counterparts. At the same time, you managed to organize a highly successful Summit of the Americas this spring for leaders of the hemisphere, as well as the first hemisphere-wide summit of business people, which showcased Colombia and highlighted the promise for growth and prosperity in our part of the world. Building on what you accomplished as defense minister in President Uribe's administration, you have over the last 2 years dealt some of the most significant blows to the FARC in its history. And with the joint signing of the General Agreement for the termination of the conflict earlier this month, and the confirmation of peace talks in Oslo this coming October, Colombians have real reason to hope that half a century of conflict may at last be coming to an end. Before I close, I want to share an interesting piece of history with all of you. It happens that you are not the first Santos to receive this medal. The Gold Insignia, which until the founding of the Americas Society in 1965 was awarded by the Pan American Society of the United States, was presented in 1940 to your great uncle, President Eduardo Santos. This evening, we are thrilled to be able to honor you in the same way your ancestor was honored 72 years ago. And now, President Santos, it is my great privilege to present you with the Americas Society's Gold Insignia. I will ask Susan Siegel to accompany you to the podium for the presentation of the award. I'm sorry. Hit you. Proceed to hear the President's remarks, let me all ask you to raise your glasses in a toast to President Santos and to the friendship between the United States and Colombia. Salud. Happy birthday.
Well, thank you, John. Thank you, Susan. And hello to all of you. Let me start by saying how grateful I am, how delighted and how honored I feel of receiving this recognition. Who would have thought in 1995, when I joined the Council of the Americas in the Board of International Advisors, that I would be back here in 2012 receiving this medal. I really feel very happy, and thank you very much for this award, not in my name, in the name of my team, my government, and 46 million Colombians. Let me say a few words about what's happening in Colombia and in the region. 2 years ago, when I came to speak at the Council, taking advantage that we were here with the UN General Assembly, I told the members of the Council and the guests at that time that I wanted a government that I hoped would be recorded in history as a government that was reformist, progressive, and decent. And I summed up our plans in the National Planning Department and the National Plan that we approved in Congress with 3 words: more security, more employment, and less poverty. 2 years later, a year later, I told you how we were still planning much of what we were doing, and now when we start the second half of the government, I think we can show some concrete results. Why do I say that I wanted a reformist government? Because Colombia needed important reforms. And in order to achieve that, the first thing we sought was the ability to make the reforms, and that is made through what is called governability, the ability to govern. And that's why, inspired by Abraham Lincoln, I called into government my rivals. Many of the candidates that ran against me, I told them to join the government, and we were able to put in place a coalition that, and I'm a bit embarrassed to say, only has 92% of Congress. And with that government of national unity, we have been able to approve 84 pieces of legislation, 84 reforms, laws. 5 of them have been constitutional reforms. This has no precedent in our history. And not only by the quantity, but also the quality of the reforms. We put in place reforms that, for example, redistributed the royalties to have a much more progressive effect, geared and focused more towards the poorest people of our country. We made reforms on the justice system, to strengthen the justice system and to strengthen the rule of law and the protection of human rights. We passed a piece of legislation that has been signaled as a very audacious piece of legislation, where we started repairing victims and restituting the land to the peasants that were displaced by the violence still in the middle of the conflict. And this law attracted so much attention that Secretary General of the United Nations went to the signature of this law when it came into being. We passed a constitutional reform and then a law called the fiscal rule. The constitutional reform is a reform that puts in our Constitution the obligation for each power, the judiciary, the legislative power, and the executive power, they have to take into account the fiscal repercussion of each decision. That is something which the whole world has said is needed in today's world when, as Bill Rhodes knows very well, the fiscal irresponsibility of certain countries have the world economy in a turmoil. And this was done with a very interesting discussion with the constitutional court about what is important in the Constitution and the defense of the fundamental rights. To simply shorten the explanation, I told the court, without an economy that is sustainable, it is very difficult to guarantee the rights of the people. If you have a crisis like you're having in many of the European countries, you cannot guarantee education, health, justice, security. So having a fiscal sustainability, having a responsible economy must be also considered in the Constitution as a fundamental right. And this was a very long discussion. We finally had it approved in the court, also in Congress. And that has helped us tremendously because, as I will say a bit later, the economy is doing quite well. We have, I don't want to continue with the reforms, but we passed the toughest anti-corruption code that probably no country, at least in the region, has approved. We have been eliminating unnecessary procedures, paperwork. We did a competition, and by law, we started sort of erasing from our statutes and our legislation many of the unnecessary burdens for businessmen and for the citizens. I say that we have been also very progressive, and I am proud to say that because the social conditions of my country and the region as a whole still have much to be done in order to be happy with the indicators. And that's why we, this year, for the 1st of January this year, made public education completely free for all children in Colombia, from kindergarten to 11th grade. This is helping 8.6 million kids in Colombia. We have increased the coverage of the health system by 2.3 million, and we have 96% coverage right now. This is a tremendous achievement in terms of the social conditions of Colombians. And as John was saying, we created more than 2 million jobs. We lifted out of poverty 1.2 million, and we think this year will be a higher number. And we have focused on extreme poverty. We brought out almost 700,000 Colombians out of extreme poverty, and we put in place a special program that has been called a state-of-the-art in the world against extreme poverty, which has 45 different indicators, and family by family, we are helping them come out of poverty. We are also have already started to repair the victims. We have repaired more than 60,000 victims of the conflict. The economy is doing quite well. We are growing. The last quarter was 4.9%. Last year we grew 5%. Inflation is at the lowest in recent history. And we are doing a tremendous effort in upgrading our infrastructure. We just launched a program to invest more than 40 billion pesos, billion of our billions, which is quite bigger than the American billions. This to give you a magnitude of the change, we used to invest 3 billion pesos on average, and it's going up to 40. And this is a tremendous opportunity for many investors and for Colombia. And all this effort and the social investment has been done taking very much into account our fiscal situation. And this year, for the first time in many decades, we're going to reach what we call fiscal equilibrium. So we're not going to have a fiscal deficit. So we have an increased investment, at the same time reduce our deficit, and we have reduced our debt. More than 10% as percentage of GDP, our debt has gone down. This, of course, as many of you are in the financial world, has been reflected in our spreads. We made a bond issue last week, almost $500 million. That 1 billion pesos. The interest rate was 4.5%, and it was 4.5%, and the bond issue was made in pesos, not in dollars. This is something that we never thought could be possible, but is now a reality. Commercially, we've been promoting free trade with many countries. As John mentioned, we finally, and thank very much to the work of the Council, we had the free trade agreement approved in the American Congress. Now it's working, and it's working very well. And we have been also negotiating free trade agreements with other parts of the world. Next month, probably the European Union in its parliament is going to approve the Colombian free trade agreement. We closed the negotiation with Korea. Yesterday, I met with the Prime Minister of Japan, and we announced the launching of the negotiations for a free trade agreement with Japan. I went to a state visit to China. They are very interested. They have already become our second trading partner, and they're very interested in investing and having a better relationship with Colombia. So we are diversifying and strengthening our commercial relations. Exports have gone up tremendously. Investment also, we are going to finish this year with a 30% investment of our GDP. That is the highest of any country in Latin America. And that's what is going to guarantee that the growth will be maintained in the future. We have, through the anti-corruption and efficiency efforts, our tax revenues have gone up in 2 years 62%. And this is what has allowed us to have this space to invest more and at the same time have a good fiscal situation. We have also tried to change and have a more positive effect in our foreign relations. The first thing, as many of you know, that I did was make friends again with our neighbors. We normalized a situation that was a bit absurd. At that time, we had no trade, no diplomatic relations, and we were even thinking about war. And that was a bit awkward and absurd. And so I said, let's even though we have very profound differences, let's get together and work things out, and for the benefit of Venezuelans, Colombians, or the Ecuadorians and the Colombians. And things have been working out very well. This has had a very positive effect in the whole region. And for example, Venezuela and Colombia made a concrete effort to fix the crisis in Honduras. And Honduras became again a member of the OAS thanks to this joint effort. So it has been a win-win situation. We have promoted also regional integration, not as an alternative to the OAS, but as a complement. And we've been very clear on that. UNASUR, we were the first Secretary Generals of UNASUR. The Caribbean community, also we are chairing the Caribbean community, and we promoted with Mexico, Mexico, Chile, and Peru, the Alliance for the Pacific, which is probably the most important integration effort done in the history of Latin America. And it's now working. We have already signed the treaty, and it's a reality. We have also tried to be very proactive in the discussions such as the environment. Colombia was very proactive in the Rio +20. As a matter of fact, the result of Rio +20, the Sustainable Development Goals, was an initiative that we presented, and we are very proud to be very active in that very important discussion. And in security, we have also made tremendous progress. We have the lowest homicide rates in the last 35 years. We have the lowest kidnap rates in the last 40 years. Almost all the indicators of different crimes are down. And as John also mentioned, we have taken out the number 1 of the FARC, the number 2 of the FARC, 18 of their front commanders, and unprecedented number of the members of the FARC have been captured, have demobilized, or have been killed. And so the security situation continues to improve, with problems, of course, but continues to improve. And the conditions were fertile to take a very, very important decision, and that is start negotiations for a peace process after 50 years of war with the FARC, and that, as was mentioned here, we are starting next month. I am optimistic, cautiously optimistic. I think the conditions are there. The right moment to take that step, I think, is right now for them and for us. And if we are successful, imagine what Colombia would look like if we have all these good achievements with a conflict, and a conflict that has cost us many lives, a lot of blood, a lot of violence, a lot of suffering. If we can achieve peace, this is the only internal conflict and the oldest in the world and the only in the hemisphere. If we can do away with that, not only Colombia, but the whole region will benefit largely. So I hope, and I am determined, to take this to the end, and a successful end. And with the help of God and the support of the international community, which we have received in a tremendous way, I hope that next year, when I come back to the Council, I can say there is peace in Colombia. Thank you.